Alright, welcome back. Day 6. If you see on the screen here, this is what we're going to work with today. This is a 32mm channel. It's a bracket from the Skills USA robot. Going to cover over some things we've already learned, but we're going to use them in a little bit different ways. We're going to show you how to create an object that's not just a cube or a plate. So we'll show two different methods of how to make that happen in this drawing. You'll notice we're going to use some circular patterns for these. I'm going to show you how to do all of this in one shot with an extrude, how to create this profile with the offsets, and then you'll notice there's some fillets in here also for later. So let's jump into it. So start a new drawing. First thing we always do is we're going to save. This is going to be in millimeters as well. So we're going to hit save. We're going to call this the 32mm channel. Make sure it's in your folder. Hit save, and that should appear there. Alright, so we're going to create a sketch, and I'm going to draw from this viewpoint first, and that's going to be the front. So in my viewpoint here, we do create sketch. We're going to pick this, which is the XZ plane. It's going to be my front plane today. The origin is just going to be just the reference point. So what we're going to do to start with is I'm going to show you two methods that we could do to make this happen. If you remember from a previous video, we talked about just putting the lines on there using the constraints, but since this is a squarish object, we're going to use the rectangles too. I'm going to start with the rectangle first. So if you go to the 2-point rectangle, it should be right here on your screen. If not, go down to create rectangle. There's your 2-point. And I'm just going to pick the origin. That's my starting point. So hover over it, let the blue box appear, drag up and away. And I just thought about the fact that I don't know how big this thing is. So let's go in here real quick and pull some dimensions. So it is 32mm tall, and that's from the very, very bottom to the very, very top. You can also do that in a drawing once you've made it later on. That's where the inspect feature comes in. Notice we have the inspect over here. You should see these two. If not, we'll drop down and you can measure. If I click on this line, make sure the line appears, and then all the way down the bottom edge, assuming they're sharp edges and not fillets, and then it tells me that's 32mm tall. And then the width of it, we'll do the same thing, inspect again. Let's go from, actually we just do this line, we'll be fine. Here to here. Let's get out of it. This corner to this corner, which is also, so it's 32 by 32. That's going to be my basic square. So we'll do a 2-point rectangle, hover over the origin, drag out, we'll type in 32 by 32. You could do these dimensions externally also, that's fine. Now, notice there's nothing in the middle of this bracket. We got to cut away all of this material, and it is 2mm thick. Here to here should be 2mm. So a couple different ways we can do it. The way I'm going to do it is we're going to use the offset. So we're going to modify to offset. And I'm just going to leave the chain selection on. Notice it's picking all 4 sides at the same time. If I turn that off, it only selects the one. If I turn it on, it selects everything. And that's what I want to do. I'm going to drag it down. So notice it's positive. So I just type in 2, hit OK. Now, we've talked about the trim feature. Now we're going to talk about the extend feature. So I need this to go all the way up to that line right there. And then I'm going to take this one out. Actually, I could do that backwards. So I'm going to hover over this till it turns blue. right click, and you'll notice delete pops up, and just get rid of it. Now notice it's just considering in this one closed object because these two don't meet. So I want this line to come up here without having to sketch a new line. So this is where the extend feature comes in. So we're going to come over here to modify, come down to extend, and you'll notice when I hover over this line, depending on which end I'm on, so hover down here, it's trying to go extend that way. If I hover up here, it goes this way. So I do that, and notice the red portion's appearing saying this is what we're fixing to extend to. I click it, and it goes all the way up. Do the same thing on the other side. There we go. Now it's a full profile. Now I only want this part to be there, so I got to get rid of this line too. But notice that's one solid line. So we're going to go to Modify, to Trim, and we're going to cut away this center section. And there's the 32 by 32, 2mm thick profile of my piece. So we're going to hit Finish Sketch now, and I'm pretty sure it's a square, but let's just double check. We're going to go to the Measurement tool. We're going to measure from this point to this point, and it is 32mm. So that's going to be my extrusion. So now I hit E, twist the screen a little bit. We'll drag it out, and we're going to type in 32. And there's the general shape that we were looking for. The next thing I want to do while I have sharp edges, because it's going to make the centering a lot easier, is I want to go on and put these holes in. Now we'll do the bottom first because it's the easiest. We're going to do, it's right smack in the center of this bracket. It's an 8mm big hole, 3.75mm small holes on a 16mm PCD. So let's select this as our sketch surface. So we're going to come over here to create sketch. We don't want to pick one of these planes. We want to pick the actual internal edge of this bracket. So notice it turns gray, not one of the orange pieces. So hover over this, click it, and then I've got to place a circle in the very, very center of this bracket. Now notice we talk about using the origin a lot. Had I drawn this as a top-down sketch and chose the center, it would have made this a lot easier. So that's just one of the references to why using the origin is good. We drew it as a starting point over here. That's fine. We'll make it work. What we're going to do now is we're just going to draw a circle, and I'm going to pick the center diameter. It could come here, circle center diameter, and then I'm just going to place it randomly on here. But and I'm not even going to specify a dimension this time. We're just going to place it, and notice it's blue. So if I hit escape, that clears out the circle. Notice that I can make the circle bigger or smaller. I can also drag it around, which means it's not constrained. First thing I'm going to do is type the letter D for dimension, and we're going to click that edge and tell it we want it to be 8mm. Now it's not in the center, and you'll notice I'm going to hit escape. I can move this thing all over the place. I need it to be in the very, very center of this block. A couple different ways you can do that. One, I could do a line, make it a construction, and go from this inside corner. Make sure that we don't go, it's either outside to outside or inside to inside, but make sure you use the same one. I'm going to hover over the inside corner, blue box appears, click it, drag all the way down to the inside corner of the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the, hopefully this will work, we'll do a coincident constraint, meaning two things that are going to exist in the same position. Click the center of the circle, and it's not going to let me pick the line. It'll do it on the line, it just won't do it with the midpoint, which is what I was going for. So let's do another line real quick. Do a line, construction, we're going to do the same cross pattern. Notice there's my center. Let's see if it'll pick up this. It may not. There we go. So I did a coincident constraint to the center of the circle to this line, and center of the circle to this line, and it put it directly in the center. That'll work. That's one way of doing it. Another way I could have done this was to dimension it. So I could have done a dimension of the bottom, which we already knew is 32. This is saying it's a driven dimension. You can't modify it. That's fine. That's what I wanted. and then do another dimension that would have gone from here to the center of the circle. And then what if this was not already placed, I could say make it half of this one, done it both ways, and it would have centered up. Either of those is a lot of options again in Fusion or in CAD in general to make a drawing. All right, now what I want to do is I want to create the PCD for these 8 circles. So pitch circle diameter, that means a circle's diameter that goes through the center of all 8 of these. So we're going to do a center diameter circle. Make sure it's still in construction line. Click the center of this point. So we're going to move till we highlight over it. Blue circle appears, meaning I'm latched into the center point. Drag away, and then just type in 16. Now we're going to draw another circle. We're going to turn off the construction line. You can press X to do that. And then I'm going to go down to the center, let the blue circle appear, and then drag upward. Notice there's that polar line directly centered. And I'm going to wait till I hit this outer circle, see the blue X appear. Click that, drag away, and 3.75. Now we got to do 8 of these equally spaced. This is where the circular pattern works the best. So we'll go up over here, come over here to create, come down to circular pattern. What object do you want? Make sure that's blue, select the circle itself. And then you've got to physically click on the center point select button. And then we're just going to click the outer circle here. And then how many? Well, it needs to be 8. And then this is automatically going to make them evenly spaced. Hit enter. There they are. Alright, so now I need to extrude those through. So we're going to press the letter E, which is going to go into extrude mode. And I want to select these 9 holes, the 8 on the outer part and 1 in the middle, and then tell it that we want it to go through. And what we're going to do is we want it to go all the way through the object, so we're just going to say the extent type to all, and that's just going to make sure it penetrates the full object, and then hit OK. Now there's my bottom holes. Now the placement of these holes here is a little bit more specific because I'm pretty sure it's the center in reference to this upper edge to the top, not from the bottom. I gotta see here. If you do have a drawing and you want to know where something is, we can come over here to inspect, and then let's see if we can find the center of the circle. So it is actually 16 millimeters from the bottom of the bracket. So what we're going to do is to place this circle, we're going to use our dimensions. So we need to create a sketch. Sketch on this face of the object. And then what I want to do is draw a circle. So we're doing a center diameter circle. The construction line is off, so this is going to be an actual circle. So we'll sketch it out, and I'm just going to sketch and place it. We're going to dimension this one. First thing I want to do is press the letter D for dimension. Click the outer edge of the circle and tell it how big it is. In this case, it's 8 millimeters. Now we're going to place it using the dimensions. First thing I'm going to do is do a dimension of this bottom portion here. So I'm going to hover over the line. Notice it fully turns blue. Click it and drag down. So that was a click and release, not a click and hold. And that's 32. It's going to say this is driven. You've already told it how big this is. That's fine. I'm going to use this as my reference for my function. So we hit OK. Then I want to click this outer edge to the center of the hole. Drag down, and then when this appears, I want to delete that. Click on this dimension and tell it to half it. So we'll do the backslash half. And that's going to put the circle centered based on this right here. Now, from the previous one, remember we said this was 16 from the bottom to the center. So we're going to do dimension again. The bottom edge to the center of the circle. And then drag off to the side. This is going to be 16 millimeters. And that has now placed my circle. This was the other method of doing it. So on the bottom, we used the lines crossing in the middle. On the side, we're using dimensions. Either works. Sometimes one works better than the other. One's faster than the other. That's all it really is. But now it's fully constrained. Notice it's black. No, blue anymore. We're exactly half the distance across here and 16 up from the bottom, and that became the center position, and also told it was an 8mm circle. Next thing we need to do is my PCD, so we're going to click center circle again. With this I want to be a construction line, so I'm going to press the letter X. Notice construction turned on. Hover over the center of this circle. Make sure the blue circle appears, meaning I'm latched to the center. Click and release. Drag out and then type in 16. There's my PCD. Now we'll draw one of the smaller circles. So we'll click on center circle. We're going to turn construction off by pressing X again. And then I want the top of this circle, so notice that it won't quite grab the top. If I come down, hover over the middle, and then pull straight up, notice there's the polar vertical line until the two meet. And then now I'm kind of latched into that corner. Click it, and then drag out. This one is 3.75 in diameter. And then I need to create the other 7. We're going to go to my circular pattern, so we'll go to Create, Circular Pattern. Which object? I want the circle. And then I need to select the center point. So I'm going to come over here and click Select. And then you can either click this outer circle or this inner white dot. Either one is fine. And then how many? There were 8 of them, so change quantity to 8. Hit Enter. There's my full sketch. Now I need to extrude it through. Now this is cool because it was symmetrical on both sides and the holes are actually on both sides. I'm just going to extrude it through in one shot. So if we come over here, we can click on extrude or press the letter E, either one. We'll select our circles and the center one, and then we're going to push them through. And then what I'm going to do is tell it the extent all, and it's going to go through everything. And then hit OK. And notice that I created the holes on both sides at the same time because they're at the same height, they're symmetrical. Everything's equal, so we can just extrude it straight through, and that simplified things. Alright, other than that, the only things that should be missing now are these fillets. So we have fillets, and notice this different coloration because this is, I believe, polished aluminum. We're going to change that appearance. So we're going to do the fillet. First thing we need to know is how big it is. So let's hit this measure. Click on the ruler. Well, you don't have this, but you will in a later time. And it's telling me the radius is 4mm. So we're going to get where I can see all 4 of the top corners. Come to Modify, Fillet, or press F as a shortcut key. Make sure you click the line. You know, if you click corner, it's going to make things different. So click the line here and do that on all 4 corners. And then tell it you want it to be 4mm in radius and hit Enter. And there it is. That is this object. Now the only thing left to do is we're going to change the physical properties this time instead of the appearance. We'll do the appearance later. So I can either highlight the whole thing. So that was hover above, top left, click, hold, drag all the way down, get the whole object. If we right click now, we should be able to see physical material. And then we're going to make this a metal. And notice we have a whole lot of different types of metals, the aluminums that popped up. In this case, it really doesn't matter which one it is. I'm going to actually change it to an anodized color. We're going to call it an anodized blue aluminum. So click it, drag over, and the whole thing should turn blue. So now the material is physically told it to be aluminum. That's going to give me a density and a mass properties, and then the appearance also changed with it to the anodized blue color. So I know in the previous one it was the actual polished aluminum. We're just going to make it interesting this time. And if you want to select a different one, let's say that you wanted to create the red anodized aluminum, that is perfectly fine. Main thing I want you to do is just demonstrate that you can change the physical properties. So you can scroll down. There's a red, there's a silver, there's a brass. Well, actually, we're making aluminum, so don't click on brass. But either of these would have been fine. And then you can still adjust the appearances outside of the physical properties. But there's our object. So that was a demonstration of the circular pattern, the offsets, and then the extend. The extend was kind of the new one today, just to show you how to get one line to connect to the next one, and then how you can extrude all the way through even if there's a gap, and then how to change the physical properties. And I've been showing you kind of how to use the measurement feature. This will become handy later on when you actually have objects, but you will do a lot with doing analysis of those objects. Alright, good luck making this one. If you got any questions, as always, just email me, and we'll see you next time.